All right, friends, let's take a look at Lab 7. This is the lab that we're going to need the title block paper that I had you pick up at the front of the classroom from, because most of the time you're not going to make your own title block. It is very simple to do, and while it could help you improve practice in some things like making sure your T-square is tight against the side of your board, things of that nature, for the most part, it really is just kind of a time waster, and we have provided title block paper for you. Move this over here. There we go. All right, so today we're looking at Lab 7. Lab 7 is another one-view drawing, so we haven't jumped into orthographics or doing multiple views of one drawing yet. This is just practicing our straight edges, and this one's throwing some unique angles into it. Well, I say unique, but your T-squares, or your T-square and your triangles are more than sufficient for everything that we're going to do. All right, so first things first. There we are. Let's get our title block attached to our drafting board. Again, you can't see it, but my T-square is nice and tight against the edge of my board. If you, and I didn't mention this last time, but if you happen to be left-handed, there is no problem with putting the T-square's head on the right side of the board to give you some more space to work with. But as I happen to be right-handed, I'm going to flip this in this direction and good to go. All right, so just like we did before, we're going to hold our T-square nice and tight to the, let's see here, there we go, side of the board. We're going to press down on the T-square here, and I'm going to slide my paper in so that it is, yeah, there we go, let's do this. There we go. Slide it in so that it is nice and tight against the T-square. I'm going to take that other bit of tape I had and split it into 4 pieces, just like we did the first time. Hold it in place. We have a bit more of a margin on this particular title block paper than we did on the previous one that we manually drew, because the printer is kind of finicky and sometimes like to give more space than we ask for. One other good thing about this title block paper that you should be able to see in person that you can't see here is that it already has the center mark in place for you. And it's also got these 3 other ones that'll probably be important when we do other types of assignments. But for today, we're going to use this one. Okay, let's take a look at our drawing. Our drawing is essentially a 4-inch by 5-inch rectangle with a bunch of things going on inside of it. So the first thing that I'm going to do in order to draw this is draw the box that it fits inside of and center it on our paper. We have the center mark in place here, right here, so we're going to use it. Our paper, or our rectangle, is 4 inches wide and 5 inches tall. So I'm going to take my scale. You don't have to do this upside down. Do this whichever way makes sense for you. Because I don't want to put my head under the camera here and then you get to stare directly down at my bald spot while I'm working, I'm going to take my scale and I'm going to line it up across the bottom of my T-square. And I'm going to slide this over so that the 2-inch mark is touching the center vertical line. And I'm going to slide down so that the blade of the scale is resting on the cross arms of my center mark. And I'm going to put it at 2 because obviously half of 4 is 2. And I'm going to make a mark at 0, and I'm going to make a mark at 4. Okay. From there, I'm going to take one of my triangles, probably my clear 45, and I'm going to ask the question, what is half of 5? Well, I just know that it's 2.5. You can break it down into the math chunks that they talk about today, which is, move it down to the next even number that you can split. So so that'd be 4, so that's 2. And then you take your 1 inch and split it in half, which is a half, so you have 2.5. However the math speaks to you. But what I'm going to do is got my T-square tied against my board, my triangle tied against the blade of my T-square, and I have my 2.5 inch mark on the dot. And to save myself some erasing later, because I am going to have to do erasing on this anyway, I'm just going to draw from 5 inch down to the 0 mark on here, which is this little corner. And I'm going to do the same thing to the other side. 5 inches down to the 0 mark. Okay. Now I could go in and go ahead and cap the top and the bottom. I know these are the right size now. But you can see here at the top and the bottom of our drawing, there is a cutout with some angles, right? So that's what I'm going to do first. First I'm going to look at my measurements here, and I'm going to see what they're telling me. So we've already determined that the rectangle is 5 tall and 4 wide. The next thing I'm going to determine is that the line that goes across the bottom on the left side, or the right side rather, is 1/4 inch long. On the left it's 1/2 inch long. These are really important because they help us put our angles in just a few minutes. But also, I can go ahead and draw them now and get them out of the way. So that's what I'm going to do. This is where I was talking about in the previous lesson that the measurements on the T-square are not super helpful. I could have spent a lot of time moving this around and getting this dead center on here, and for this particular drawing, it probably would have been helpful. But anytime we do our orthographic drawings and the things where we're going to use the 3 other center marks on here, it wouldn't be helpful. And I don't want to get us into that habit of relying on this. So, what I'm going to do, is just like I did when I was measuring side to side, is take my scale, come down to the bottom, and I'm going to put, I've just chosen the 4 inch marker here because I just needed a spot. I'm going to come over 1/4 inch and I'm going to draw that line. So from the hole mark to 1/4 inch mark. On the other side, I'm going to do the same thing. This just happens to be the 8 inch mark. And I'm going to come over to the 1/2 inch place. Now, it doesn't specifically tell us this in the drawing, but we know that it's true because it doesn't tell us. If we look up here at the top, it doesn't tell us how long that line is. What it does do, though, is doesn't tell me that it's not the same as down here. So for this, and because I made the shape originally in the first place, I'm going to do the same thing up here at the top. So put this up here, 8 inch mark on the edge, 1/2 inch line on the left, and 1/4 inch line on the right. So this also saves us from having to do some erasing later, which is always a good thing. Okay, so the next thing that we have to do is start putting angles in, because that's essentially all we have left to do, besides one short straight line right about here. We can go ahead and put that in if we want. What I'm going to do is mark my 1 inch line with the bottom. Use my other triangle for this. There we go. Mark my 1 inch line with the bottom right there. And then I'm just going to draw a light line through that area. And I'll erase what I don't need in just a little bit. Okay, so first thing. Easiest 4 lines of the drawing. This right here tells us that the angle is 45 degrees. Conveniently, you have a 45-degree triangle. This one's 90, this is 45, and that's 45. So I'm going to take my 45-degree triangle, line the hypotenuse of said triangle up with the end of my half-inch line, and I'm going to draw up to the line we just drew. And that's that angle. Whoopee! But you're asking yourself, how do we do this one? Oops, don't do that. There we go. How do we do this one? It doesn't really give us enough information, does it? Well, it does tell us that it is 1 inch apart from this line, and it is also parallel. It tells us that because the dimension marks here are pointing directly at each other. So how do we do that? Well, the easiest way is going to be this. I'm going to take both of my triangles, with my 45-degree triangle nice and tight against the blade of my T-square. I'm going to set my other triangle so that I have a nice 90-degree edge right here. And I'm going to slide this until I have my 1 inch mark over the line we just drew, just like that. And I'm going to slide this out of the way. And I don't know how far up I need to go. I just need to know I need to go that way. And that is that leg of our shape done. On the other side, we've got the same situation going on, just the other direction. So I've got my 30-degree angle here. I have running up against the end of my 1/4 inch line. I'm just going up like that. And we're going to do the exact same thing, only in reverse with the other triangle. Now this one's going to be a little bit more tricky because we have this gap right here. We should probably figure out how big that gap is. And by measuring it across our other triangle, we can find out that on this triangle, that gap is 1/4 of an inch by 1/4 of an inch. That's what that little square is. So to whatever measurement that we're going for from the blade, we have to subtract 1/4 of an inch. Now, granted, also my is upside down. That's fine too. So I'm going to press against my triangles here. I'm going to come up here to make that happen. So remember, 1/4 of an inch here, so I'm going to come up to 3/4. If your triangle does not have this, you don't have to do the burning of 1/4 of an inch. That's good. Okay, I'm going to hold all of that down, and then same deal. Just like that. Except, I'm going to remember and look at my drawing and know that the gap on this side is 1.5 inches, not an inch, and then we're going to fix that and pretend like that didn't just happen. So, to do that, instead I'm going to move this out so that I've got 1 1/4 over here. Remember, we're burning that 1/4 of an inch. Come on. There. Okay, let's do this. Move that out of the way. There we go. Compound angles are fun, aren't they? Oh my goodness. Brain, no braining. There we go. That's it. I was measuring off the wrong line. That would have completely messed everything up. There we are. 1.5 inches. Get rid of that offending, messed up line right there. So that's the bottom. Let's look at the top. The top is probably the easiest part to do. I don't even have to measure anything. All I have to do is put my triangle so that the angles are going the correct direction and move this around until both edges are touching legs of my triangle. So 1/4 inch on that side, 1/2 inch on that side. Hold it in place. Remember that I'm upside down, so my triangle is not exactly placed. There we go. Because it's upside down, there's like a gap that throws off my lines. That's parallax. Just like that. And then I'm going to come in here with, oops, and get a nice sharp corner. And then that's essentially it for this part. All we need to do, whoops, can't, brain, no brain. What? There, goodness gracious. There we go, nice and connected. And then same thing we did before. We're gonna take our triangle, we're gonna set it up here. We're gonna take our other one. We're going 1 inch this time, remember, so I want to, let's see here. This is going to involve just making a mark, so I'm going to measure that there, and put a mark right there. Take my triangle, slide it over to my mark. This side is 1 inch, remember. This side's 1.5 inches. So we're marking it 1.25 inches because we remember that this is 1/4 inch. Slide this up here. There we go. And everything's left, or the only thing left is the cleanup. So let's do that real quick and call this a lab. Once you have completed this, please utilize any remaining class time to get caught up on your pictorial drawings if you haven't had those turned in yet. Also, make sure that you have the survey completed, and that if you haven't turned in the lettering assignments or the lettering quiz, basically make sure you have everything turned in. If you have everything turned in, check for other homework and other classes, or find some way to occupy yourself that is not going to be disruptive or distracting. Go ahead and put your drafting kits away at this point as well. But other than that, I'll see you when I get back to class next time. And yeah, there we go. Can't come up with enough to fill in the rest of the dead air here, but there we go. That's our finished drawing. Oh, make sure you fill out your stuff down here at the bottom. So first initial, last name. This is lab 7. There's 7. Today is, should be February 2nd still. 2/2/2026. And in the scale spot, just put your hour. So probably P